presenting our feature artist, Thomas Brunger. Tom, you certainly have a passion for what you do, and looking at your wonderful artwork, it shows. How did you develop this passion, or how did you become interested in what you do?
Well, I was a sculptor. I mean, I did painting and sculpture when I was in college. Matter of fact, when I was in college, I took every course I possibly could because I knew nothing really about art. I always liked doing it, drawing and stuff, but I didn't really know much about it. So I took all the courses you could, everything from industrial design to wood shop and painting and even weaving and textiles. But I sort of settled in on sculpture. I always kind of saw things in three-dimensional form. And I sort of enjoyed the kind of totemic or solid form that sculpture had, initially anyway. And I taught sculpture in Rochester, New York for 4 years, and then I went to Rhode Island School of Design, and I did a lot of sculpture over the years. But the trouble with sculpture is it takes up a lot of space. So I ended up throwing out an awful lot of sculpture that I had done. And I turned to painting as a result. And I kind of liked the thought of doing the paintings because it was something new, and I always was looking for something new. I wasn't looking for a particular style or anything like that. Most of my thinking is kind of sporadic. Every day you wake up, you have different thoughts and different things that are on your mind. Ideas come that way as well. So generally speaking, I'll do things in series. Sometimes it'll be a long series like the Adirondack series, or sometimes there'll be short ones, 5 or 6 paintings or something like that. And I'll move from one thing to the next, day to day or week to week, depending upon how how long the series goes and how fresh it still feels to me. But I grew up with abstract expressionism, and when we were kids, we used to laugh about making Picasso paintings and so on and so forth, and we'd sit there and draw paintings that looked like Picasso or looked like Matisse or whatever, and primarily drawings, but it was a lot. It was kind of silly and mocking, but when you started analyzing what was going on and learning a little bit about the history behind art and the dynamism that was going on as a result of the Industrial Revolution, all that began to change with the realists and the impressionists. And I stopped laughing anymore and began to seriously consider what was being said. So I never really got fixed on one particular era, except that in the abstract expressionist period, I felt a kind of synergy with that group of painters. I liked the dynamism the dynamics that they were using, the getting away from the idea of a tight image or a representational type of image that relied upon what one saw through their eyes, as opposed to what one saw or felt in their heart or their soul, or what came out from just the natural process of painting. Experimenting with paint was a part of that whole era. And I didn't really know, most of the stuff that I did watercolors of railroad trains and mountains and that kind of stuff, because my dad was a model railroader. And he asked me to do some scenes for him or whatever, and they didn't really turn out very well. But when I got to college, I learned an awful lot more about painting and that kind of stuff. But my heart was still with the guys like de Kooning and Pollock, and especially Franz Klein. And Motherwell. Motherwell I've learned to appreciate much more as than I did then, which was a lot, simply because I began to understand his intellect and what was involved with the process of painting that he did. But I get bored easily. I'll work with something for a while, and then something else will hit me, and I'll just, I want to go with it. And I think I told you, Susan, just the other day, that one of the things, and I've said this many times, is the paintings really, they're not huge paintings. I don't particularly care to paint huge paintings. I think that they're a little bit bombastic for me and showy. I like my paintings to be a little bit more intimate, a little bit more on the human scale. Mm-hmm. So I look at my paintings as really like poems, short thoughts, if you will, a short story or a concise statement, and not so much as as an historic overview or some kind of majestic thing. So that's really that's the way I work. It's the idea that I feel comfortable with the freedom to move from one thing to the next. I don't think that you have to establish a style and stay with that style. That's been something that it's still very much apparent. But there are artists, and more that you see, who work through different series, and their work is constantly evolving. And I understand that because that's the way that I work, and it makes sense to me because I don't think that life is static. I don't think thoughts are static. I think that art should reflect contemporary world, contemporary way of life, contemporary thought. It's as rich in its visual experience as thoughts are in the cerebral experience, I guess. So I try different things, and I work with different things, and I get a big kick out of it.